Hello, how are we doing? S- Starting off, I'm just sorting my lights before I go on camera, um, because they are at this point what I would call uh, unreasonably harsh. Now that's better. Let's see. Full screen camera. It's still a bit harsh. Let's get some different colours going on here. How is everyone? I hope we're all doing well. I hope we're all fine. Uh, Not sure. As ever, we're not exactly sure what I'm going to talk about today. Um, who knows? But we've got we'll as ever do some music and some chatting. No wine this time. It's still a bit warm, so I've got a nice bit of gin and tonic uh, to keep me cool. That's nice. I still haven't fully set up my guitar yet, and I can't find my plectrum. So give me 2 minutes. I found the plectrum. Sorry, is this any better now? Uh, let's see. Uh, Dan, that was a real difference in audio quality there. Let me just. Uh, yeah, is that any better? I do like a good gin. But I think first thing that we'll do is start get a tune on the go, and see what vibes we're gonna start off today with. I just I I forgot to plug in all my guitar stuff. I will be back in 2 seconds. Not playing fucking Wonderwall because well that's something we can talk about. I fucking hate Oasis. One time I went to Nashville and outside every like every second or third bar had a band playing had like some shitty singer songwriter playing Wonderwall. And I like people are talking about the great world of Nashville music and I just couldn't believe it. It was like, oh, go to Nashville and see some great music. No, go to Nashville and see people play Wonderwall over and over again. Okay, let's try something. Well, I forgot to turn the microphone down during that, so I guess you could hear me breathing. But that's quite chill. We quite like that. How are we feeling for that? Yeah. So I guess plan for today. I don't really have much of a plan as ever. I always come on stream and I'm like, I don't have anything to say or do. Which is always great. Which is the sign of a professional. I guess for anyone who doesn't know, the next video, which is just a short wee book review, is up now for patrons, so patrons can see that video now, and it should be up for everyone else on, I think, Sunday. I think I'm going to put it up on Sunday. So if you want to watch that now, become a patron. But if not, wait until, or a member. Channel members can also see the video now. I always forget to promote channel members because I don't quite know how it works, because again, I'm a professional. But for channel members, that'll be up. That's up as well. It's on the book Limits, Why Malthus is Wrong and Why Environmentalists Should Care, by Georges Callis. It's just a short wee video, but that's fun. What kind of socialist would I describe myself as? I wouldn't describe myself as in a terms of like in a tendency in the sort of in that sort of sense of like, oh, I'm an anarcho-communist or something. I would, the closest thing I could say to that would be, where does my analysis mostly center? And because that draws a lot from like social reproduction theory stuff and Marxist feminist stuff, I'd probably put myself into that sort of category of social reproductive theorist, or feminist Marxist or Marxist feminist or something like that. I keep getting some people keep asking questions on some of the videos of like saying, John, are you an orthodox Marxist? And it's an odd question to ask. Yeah, I'm a cherry flavoured Marxist. Because I don't think time to roll a joint. Oh, that'd be nice. Maybe no, I don't think I'll have time tonight. I could. One of these days. See, the thing is, should I say this on stream? I am still trying to get employed. Probably not. Yeah, people keep asking me like, are you an orthodox Marxist? And I'm not sure I can ever give them an answer that they want, because I'm not sure what they mean. Do they like, because even the term Marxist is a term which developed within a tradition which isn't necessarily in line with interpretations of Marx that I necessarily agree with. And the term orthodox Marxist is one that is often associated with with a tradition that goes from Karl Kautsky to Lenin to Stalin, and it's like, I don't agree with that tradition in many ways, but you'd sort of approach Marx in a kind of Marxian way and go back to like the text of what he wrote and interpretations of like the text, like the last video on co-ops. You go back to the text, you analyze what he says, and you interpret from there. And then people are like, oh, so you're going back to Marx, so you must be an orthodox Marxist. And that's not quite right. That's not quite what they mean. So it's a difficult question to answer unless someone is very specific about what they actually mean by that question. So if you want to ask me, John, are you an orthodox Marxist? Ask me, are you an orthodox Marxist in the sense of it being defined in the mid-20th century through Kautsky, Lenin, Stalin? And being a social reproduction theorist, the simple answer to that is no, because I expand a lot of my actual work outside of YouTube. YouTube is actual work. I shouldn't denigrate myself. A lot of the work that I do in academic work is a theoretical expansion of under-theorized aspects of Marx's work, social reproduction. Defined differently from people like Althusser and stuff like that. So, if you have asked me that question in the past and I didn't give a sufficient answer, that's fine. Any new groups I've been listening to? So I have been listening actually to a friend of mine DM'd me the other day because he'd come across a bunch of desert blues, which is like, and this is my friend Davil's word, which is a fusion of blues and mostly Tuareg music from the Sahara in West Africa, and he messaged me this saying, "Oh, have you been listening to this?" And I have. I have been listening to that. I came across a band earlier in this year called Tinariwen, 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 who are fucking great. I love them so much, and I think the reason I came across them is because Mark Lanegan, and he did a bunch of songs with Queens of the Stone Age. Did a song with them before he sadly died, and did Mark Lanegan die or did I make that up? I think he died. He did a song with them, and it's great, and I've been listening to them quite a lot. They're very good. I'm just gonna have to check if Mark Lanegan died, because I can't remember if I just made that up. He did die. He died 2 years ago. That was, very sad. Other things, I guess, that have been going on. So new video coming out on Sunday. If you haven't watched the last video on co-ops, which didn't do very well, I'm not on a very good streak right now, unfortunately. But I think I'm very pleased with that video, because it does something which people have been asking me to do for a while as well, which was doing some like very basic nuts and bolts Marxism. What does this stuff mean? What is exploitation? What is value? Things like that. And I think that's very handy. There wasn't too much. I didn't get any abuse, which was nice. But yeah, it didn't do quite as well as I was hoping. But hopefully it will be a keeper. One that will build in views after a while. The next one, I promise the next video after this will be the family abolition video. I'm just finishing up. I'll be starting to write the script for that next week. But I wanted to get this video review out, so just to keep content churning over, essentially, because that's what we need. No problem, neglecting my channel. Other thing that's going on, so I have also started doing some freelance writing for the channel Wisecrack, and I wrote a video on immigration politics and how neoliberal immigration politics are essentially the fertile ground upon which fascism is bred. So keep an eye out. I will probably be promoting it when it comes out, but keep an eye out for a video on Wisecrack about immigration and fascism and neoliberalism, because I will have written that. And it goes into some necropolitics and some social reproduction theory as well, because that's the stuff I know. So that should be coming out on Wisecrack's channel at some point in the near future. So yeah, that's quite a fun video. And the Wisecrack folk are good to work with. I bought myself a cigar today, and I am so excited to gut it and fill it with British Columbian butt. That sounds nice. What's next? What was I? Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm gonna assume how far into the stream are we? Like half an hour, if any. No employers are gonna make it this far. I do have some edibles in the house, and I was thinking about one day just having one and doing a stream. But my issue with that is when I'm baked, I just get really quiet. I don't think it would be fun for anyone, and it's not like I enjoy it. I just have a nice chill time by myself, and I'm just like, hey, I'm just here to chill out, and I don't need to talk, and that's it. Knowledge and defence saying, that said, I agree with their non-status positions like supporting united co-op societies as a stepping stone to communism, workers' councils, and armed proletariat and peasant communes. Yeah, I mean, so the point of the video, I think the important point of the video is that co-ops aren't bad. It's not like I'm saying that co-ops are bad, but the value that they hold is not, I don't think, as a transition. I don't think that will work as a stepping stone to communism. I don't think we're going to develop our way into communism like that. I don't know how, how do we get to a point of a non-competitive co-op society without a massive revolutionary force? You can't sort of develop your way into that. It's going to be something that's going to be a hard break, frankly. It's going to be a revolution, and I don't think workers' co-ops are necessarily workers' councils, within a competitive, or even what a non-competitive system would look like within a market socialist system. I don't think that works. And as we say, a market socialist system will never work. So it can't be competitive. It can't be about exchanging value. When all of production is communized, what is a co-op, really? How about a reaction stream? I also get silent, but not if I'm repeatedly prompted about my special interest. I mean, maybe, but I don't think that would work. I don't know. Frankly, I don't know how to do reaction streams. I don't know what I would react to. I don't watch enough stuff that gets me annoyed on YouTube and things like that to do a reaction stream. It's not sort of content that I think I'd enjoy or would be good at. I don't know why we call it leftist unity and not leftist synthesis dialectics. Very good. I mean, the thing that next time we're streaming, I'm sure we'll have something to react to, and that will be, I will probably, despite the fact that I know I'm not gonna like it, I am gonna watch that new Lord of the Rings TV show, and you're all gonna have to hear about how much it's frustrating me, because there's absolutely no way it's gonna be good. I just don't think it's gonna be good, and you're gonna see me. I'm probably gonna watch one episode after this, and it's not gonna be good. And you're gonna hear me complain about it. Oh, someone mentioned Aram Bastani earlier. What was that? I was meaning to. How do you think you would have turned out if Aram Bastani had been your father? How would I have turned out Western Digital Entertainment. Are you? Is this the Aaron Bustani questions? How would you react if your best friend got together with Aaron Bustani? I'd think that was weird, considering he has a wife and child. I would think that was a strange turn of events. I'd be disappointed in them because he's a wanker. Yeah, I am gonna do a book review of how would I have turned out if Bustani had been my father? God, I'd probably end up a right winger. I don't know. Given that's who he is. I will do a book review of his fully automated luxury communism. Probably after the family abolition video, but I didn't want to do it this time. I didn't want to make the next video because the last book review was somewhat was really critical. I don't want the channel to just be like me shitting on people. So this video is this review is nicer. It's a video I like. It's a review, a book I liked. So that's why I did it. That's why I didn't do Bustani this time. I'll do Bustani next time. I'll maybe do a sort of with the book review videos. I might do one I didn't like, one I liked, one I didn't like, one I liked, just to stop me from getting pure like hating just shitting on people all the time. Oh. But we will shit on Bustani next time. Had a weird dream about him and pure can't stop thinking about him. That's fair enough. That sounds bad. I hope you're okay. Mutual aid could gradually decommodify items based on scarcity in territories controlled by the working class, but co-ops could hold the fort, so to speak, until we defeat capitalism everywhere. I just don't think that's how that's going to happen. I don't think that mutual aid is I think that any revolutionary situation is going to need. That's probably why I'm not an anarchist in the sense, because it's going to need to have some degree of seizing power immediately and decommodifying a whole bunch of things. I'm not sure co-ops can hold the fort. I just don't think that's how they work. I don't think that's their function. And I think, like in an area controlled by the working class, why would it be a co-op? Why would you need a co-op for that sort of production? And what would it co-op mean in an area controlled by the working class? They're like a capitalist they're a capitalist form of production, in my view. So instituting a co-op, I don't think it would be worthwhile. Hello Andrew Murray, and hello Andrew Murray's cat. I appreciate the cat saying hi. I had a dream I had a tiny T-Rex as a pet and that I was spending Christmas at Dr. Doom's Edmonton home. Like a tiny T-Rex, 4 centimeters tall. He scurried away, but Doom gave me a piece of meat that worked to win his heart. Doom was an impeccable host with a genuinely Christmassy warm reception, but the dream ended after. I feel like he was part MF Doom. That sounds delightful. I'm glad you had a nice dream. Why do I hate Oasis so much? They're shit. I just think they're shit. I think that their music's bland and boring and fucking bullshit. I think their whole deal about pretending to be the Beatles is sad and shitty. I think both Liam and Noel Gallagher are massive wankers, massive homophobic fucking wankers, horrible people who don't deserve a shred of respect from anyone. And I think all the people who are so obsessed, all these like arsehole middle-aged men who are obsessed with Oasis being like the great era of guitar music, are the most boring fuckers alive. and constantly shitting on like pop music and fun music and anything that's not like this sort of aesthetic ideal of a fake working class that's been shoved down the throats of people. I think they're shit. I also used to busk, and every second person busking plays Wonderwall, and it fucking does my nutting. I cannot deal with it anymore as a song. I hear it and I break out in hives. So there's a few reasons why I don't like Oasis. Oasis don't even use guitars that interesting. No, all their songs are fucking... They're shit. I'm afraid they're just shit. Their music's boring, and they're shit. I'm afraid. Hi John, I'm moving to Edinburgh soon and was wondering if you had any recommendations for places to go, especially music, queer, leftist stuff. Well, I've never actually lived my adult life in Edinburgh really. I grew up in a village about half an hour outside Edinburgh. So I've never been that involved in many places about. In terms of music, the jazz bar is always great, and places like Summer Hall often have interesting stuff going on. There is what's it called? There's a place Leith is quite good for gay and queer spaces. If you go down to Leith, there's lots of good gay bars about there. CC Bloom's is like your most famous gay bar, but it's not great. Paradise Palms is quite a nice gay bar. Aside from that, I'm afraid I'm not hugely in with the Edinburgh culture because I never lived there as an adult. I lived in Glasgow when I was an adult. Yeah, sorry. Just checked out any Oasis lyrics, even worse than stupid Red Hot Chili Peppers and pointless Flaming Lips. Anarchists are in favour of prefiguration and decommodifying as much as possible, as soon as possible too, and it would look like these autonomous zones. Yeah, I mean, we can. I think we can work to decommodify as much as possible, as soon as possible. But I don't think that necessarily constitutes what would be a stepping stone or a transitionary phase between communism and social, and communism and capitalism and communism. And I think that when we get to something that would be like, I think we get into a problem of what counts as a transitionary phase, I guess, because we're talking about market socialism as a transitory phase. That obviously doesn't make sense because of stuff I talk about in the video, all the inherent contradictions within that, and the necessary point that if you get to something where market socialism can exist, you already have the proletarian power to create communism, so why bother with the market socialism? But then you get to a point where, like, well, if we're building power at any point and prefiguring at any point, fighting to decommodify by like creating housing co-ops or you know, working to eke some compromises from the state to decommodify, I don't know, water or housing or things like that. Does that count as a transitionary phase? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. And in that sense, co-ops would be useful if that was a transitionary phase, and co-ops would be useful within a broader transitionary phase to, again, like we see in the video, to reveal things about the necessary fakeness of capitalist production and how we already produce socially. And like autonomous zones are useful as a sort of transitionary phrase in similar reasons. But I guess it's sort of an issue of what counts as a transitionary phase. Any other musical groups I like being a hater on? Oh man, so many. It's lots. The Cooks. So much of landfill indie of like mid 2000s to like 2015 is just you look back at it now and you're like, these bands like the Editors and the Cooks and the fucking these basically Oasis knockoffs, and you listen to them and you're like, God, this fucking sucked. God, this was bad. Sorry, one sec. As it stands, we have to engage in a world market and trade to some extent as we make progress. That's why Marx supported them as well. No, this is what we talked about in the video. Marx's support of co-ops was not because he believed that you have to engage in a world market, but because co-ops, as he said, sort of reveal the facade of production. He didn't argue that co-ops were necessarily a transitory phase of capitalism to communism, in the sense that it's like, oh, we need to engage with them because we need to engage with the world with markets. That's certainly not his argument. Marx is 100% against the market as a structure. He does not think that we have to engage with the market, and in fact he thinks the opposite. The market should not be engaged with as a thing that we need to use to transition to communism. That's certainly not Marx's position at all. That's a big point in the video. Do I believe that a centralized state would ever wither away and wouldn't have dishonest opportunities lying their way to stop the abuse of the power of their successors in the sector? I don't think a centralized state. I don't think it depends. I think what you mean by state, and that is. So when Marx talks about working class governments, he's not talking about a state or a centralized state as such, but as a revolutionary moment when the workers take control, like the Paris Commune. He viewed that as a revolutionary government, and that is the immediate process of it withering away. And that is the sort of revolutionary government that I think we would have to take. Yeah. I read Lenin's polemic on Kotsky, reasoning, who boy is Lenin sassy? I read Althusser's on ideology a few weeks ago, and that book has a whole, like a half of it is about replying to a guy he doesn't like. Is a whole like half of it is his reply to John Lewis, and that is sassy. And it's odd. I kind of I liked about half of Althusser's on ideology. The other half I was just like, maybe. Any favourite revolutionary bands? The Coup. The Coup are great. That's of so the Coup is the director of Sorry to Bother You's band. They're great. Who do I have? There's a guy, an Australian guy who's good, called he's like a sort of, he does like Australian folk music. Song that's called From Little Things Big Things Grow. That's good. That's fine. Paul Kelly, he's good, and he does lots of like protest songs of like for Aboriginal Australians, and like revolutionary songs as well. He's really good. I like him. I have never read anything from Evald Elyakov. I've not read anything, I'm afraid. Marx said every new system emerges with the defects of the old one, and likewise I just don't see how we can immediately do communism. Marx doesn't say all systems emerge with the defects of the old one. I think what you're thinking of is a quote in which Marx talks about co-ops as emerging with necessarily the defects of the current system. Because I don't even think that necessarily makes sense if you approach that as a system. Because if the new system exists with all the defects of the old system, what would be the point? Where we're getting into sort of transitionary arguments about what it means to transition immediately to communism. You get into sort of questions about immediate dictatorship of the proletariat, and then a lower stage and higher stage communism. And these arguments are things that have been consistently misinterpreted. Lenin was bad for misinterpreting and conflating dictatorship of the proletariat with communism, and with lower stage communism with this sort of idea of socialism and of like actually continuing capitalism but with socialist characteristics. But none of that stuff is derived really from a close reading of Marx. Dictatorship of the proletariat being an immediate sort of overtaking of power by the proletariat, and then both lower and higher stage communism being immediate abolition of class, an immediate abolition of markets and of exchange and of value, because that is necessarily what communism means. I think the moment that we allow markets and allow the market to be part of what we think of as an emergent revolutionary system, we've already failed. Markets will not be used, they will not give up their power. The inclusion and use of a market will not be a stepping stone to something better, but will be dragging us back. Because for a market, you need the production of value. You need the abstraction of labour. You need exploitation for a system in which the market underpins production. That's what's needed. And if the market doesn't underpin production, what's the point of it? If it doesn't underpin production, we don't really need it. So why would we have it? There's the issue with cooperatives, and it's like the issue with all of this stuff is without a proper understanding of what value and markets actually are, then we will actually fail. And to have a market is to have a society, a state underpinned by markets. An economy underpinned by markets is to necessarily import not just some of the defects, but all of the defects of capitalism. Even if you have co-ops, you will still have exploitation. Even if you have all co-ops, you will still have exploitation. You will still have inequality. You will still necessarily have exploitation. And if it's not a revolution that's global, you will still have global north-south. I don't see how that can happen, because we can't do a revolution everywhere at the exact same time and expect them just to succeed. Where does production mostly happen in the world right now? Production mostly happens in the global south. That's likely where any revolutionary activity is going to happen. And if production happens there, then it's going to have to tumble on and keep happening until a global revolution happens. It's going to be a global revolution, or it's going to be nowhere. And maybe it's not successful all at once, but where it is successful, it cannot have markets. Markets have to be abolished. I'm not sure why ads keep getting inserted everywhere. So anywhere that the revolution is successful, there cannot be markets, there cannot be commodity production, because that will mean the revolution hasn't been successful. If the revolution hasn't been successful, then the revolution hasn't been successful. I'm afraid that's just how it is. If you have, as Guggenheim says, the commodity farm produces its own capital incentives, even if they become abstracted from any specific person, state, or organ. Exactly right. That is exactly right. And it's one of the issues why you can't simply reform your way to communism, because all of those capital incentives, it won't be done gradually, because these capital incentives will all the time just reproduce capitalism. We won't find a way to overcome that. We'll just recreate class over and over again. This is the central problem that Marx is talking about. If you are creating, this is why Marx starts with the commodity farm, and that's why I start with the commodity farm in that video, because the commodity farm necessarily implies, within a much broader area, markets, exploitation, class, all those things. If you continue to produce commodities, you continue to be underpinned by markets, underpinned by value, reproducing class, even in different ways that we do it. And then reproducing class, we just reproduce capitalism over and over again. And that's the problem with a sort of gradualist or reformist view of doing things like this. We just end up reproducing over and over and over again capitalism. I mean, even if we look at some of the revolutionary examples in our current world, China, the USSR, to some extent even Cuba, which I think Cuba is probably the best case scenario for any current revolutionary state. Still, they end up just reproducing capitalism because they cannot and they will not abolish the commodity farm. We need some communist sci-fi that tells stories of successful revolutionary decommodification. May I introduce you to Ursula Le Guin and The Dispossessed, one of my favourite ever books. Wonderful book. It's a great example of the way of a sci-fi communist society, which isn't perfect. It manages to deal with the problems innate within that society, while making clear that those problems are something that can be dealt with, and are also in relation to being in really hard conditions, and why the revolution has to be defended at all times, even against agents within it. It's really, really good. If you've not read the Dispossessed, read it. I know this isn't adding to the discussion, but my cat is so cute and I love him. That absolutely adds to the discussion, and I appreciate it. I disagree that co-ops are fundamentally capitalist because I define capitalism as private ownership over the means of production rather than commodity production and wage labour. Those are still bad. I mean, then I think that in a discussion here we would just be an impasse, because that is not a definition of capitalism that I would recognise. And also, I mean, a co-op would still be private ownership of a means of production. It would just be private ownership of those workers who work in that co-op. They still privately own that co-op, don't they? It's not communized to the whole of society in that case. There's still private ownership. But yeah, I would define capitalism as, and there's a problem with defining capitalism, because and this is an issue which is ongoing and we're not going to solve on this stream. There's nobody really defines it. Marx doesn't define it. We can only sort of figure from his analysis what it actually means. And for me, it means the continued accumulation of capital and the continued valorization of capital, which necessarily entails all of these things of value, of commodity production, of markets, within a very historically specific ensemble. And I guess like people like Bernanke would necessarily be like, oh, it's not the historic specificity of our current capitalism isn't necessarily a defining feature of it, because there's been other capitalisms throughout history. So there's problems with that definition as well, but I certainly wouldn't restrict it to something as narrow as just the private ownership of the means of production, because that would, in my view, be very, very reductive and would stop you from fully analysing the system as a whole. That would be my sort of view on that. Sometimes when I run out of paper, I use my copy of Atlas Shrugged. Why do you have a copy of Atlas Shrugged? Le Guin is the best Portlander ever. I didn't realise she was from Portland. No, it's cooperative ownership, even according to Marx. The different co-ops could be united through each other. I'll get to that comment in a second. To carry it on to a slightly hypothetical, surely if communist mode of production comes to be on Earth, but some aliens far away remain in capitalist relations, there's no issue for humans. That's the dispossessed for you. Not to say socialism in one country was feasible. Yeah, I don't think socialism in one country was feasible, unfortunately. Concretely, how would production be determined without markets? Who gets what, when, and why? Benjamin Flynn, first of all, did you study politics in university? Because that was the who gets what, when, and why was my first introductory class into politics, was that question. Who gets what, when, and why? Concretely, how would production be determined without markets? Who gets what, when, and why? By, I guess, the people who exist within society. We can arrange together within society about what is produced and what we need. Food, there's generally assumed to be food overproduction would be required to allow for shortfalls, hypothetical shortfalls in the future, and generally just conscious planning. What do we need to survive in a society at the moment? What is required? What are things that we need to be producing? Basic necessities of life. We can basically. I think if you noted down things that you were required for life. Oh, thank you, JtD. I will get to your question in just one moment once I finish this thought, which has escaped from me. Consciously planning within people within various points of society, various communities, and cooperating with different groups of people, we can decide what is required for production. I don't think we necessarily need the market to determine that. We haven't always needed the market to determine what is required. I don't think we would. No, it's cooperative ownership even according to Marx. I don't think that's right. Even according to Marx. Cooperative ownership even according to Marx. I'm not sure where you would necessarily get that distinction within Marx's writing. Would it still be private ownership, or cooperative? Would cooperative ownership be? Because cooperative ownership could be between lots of different people as well. Like a private ownership, most companies are not owned by one person but by lots of people cooperatively. And those people who work within that industry, within that workplace, would still be owning it cooperatively, but still privately. It wouldn't be. It would still be owned, and that ownership is necessarily private. That's why we talk about why we talk about abolishing ownership over property, over the means of production. Different co-ops could unite through mutual aid networks rather than create monopolies over wealth and power, plus feudalism also had commodities. Yeah, feudalism did also have commodities, but feudalism, like I say, wasn't underpinned by commodity production. And if you removed commodity production through sorry, I've lost my train of thought again. Yeah, if you underpinned a society with commodity production, then you're producing capitalism. Feudalism didn't require the commodity production. It was just something that emerged, and as it emerged, became more dominant. And the presence of commodities within feudalism, which then became capitalism, is more of an argument against the introduction of commodities in the first place, because the historical introduction of commodities then produced capitalism. Saying, I like the definition of capitalism as like an organism which capital accumulation, private ownership, means of production, mass commodity are parts of a moving, breathing machine. I like that as well. I like capitalism. I like thinking of the movement and of the sort of organic nature of it is very useful, I think. I like that sort of thing. Completely unrelated, but I was reading Marx's Ecology by Foster just a moment ago. Have you read it? I haven't actually read Bellamy's Foster's work, but I have been meaning to, and I've read around it. So I've read lots of stuff that references it, but never actually read the work. And now to Tahiri. Thank you for the super chat again. I appreciate that so much. And do I think that much of the left sees Indigenous people as a relic of history rather than people who are still around and leading a lot of resistance? Absolutely yes. And I think that in settler colonial states like the US, like New Zealand and Australia, like Israel, that's part of what makes them, that's part of how they work, and that's part of how they continue to keep their power. And that's why a lot of white supremacists on the left talk about Indigenous people in the past. That old video I did of Vosh's, I'll talk about Vosh. Not a character I've seen pop up recently. I wonder what happened to him. But that was sort of a point that I was trying to get at, more broadly than just him, but like there is a very strong tendency, you see it all the time, of ostensibly left-wing people saying things like the US isn't a settler colony anymore because the US completely overruled all of the Indigenous people there, so it's now just capitalist, not settler colonial, and that's bollocks. That's just settler bollocks for people who don't want to admit that even working class white people can hold a structural settler, essentially class relation within the settler colonial state, even one as old as the US. And the fact that a lot of Indigenous people are leading a lot of resistance, especially through climate resistance, not exclusively, but lots of examples of Indigenous groups being real leaders in terms of resisting climate extraction, because so much of it happens on their land, and so much of it is predicated on the further removal of access to that land and the further expansion of the settler colonial state. Benjamin Flynn studied computer science. Well. Eurocentrism and the Communist Movement was a great read on how ignoring or dismissing us and BIPOC in general ends up hurting revolutions. That's I will note that down for a good read. Would I go on to the Deprogram podcast? Yeah, sure. I'd go on. I'm a fucking slag. I'll go on any podcast. Someone invites me on a podcast, I'll be like, yeah, I'll go there. I also view socialism as social ownership over the means of production created by working class revolutionaries until the revolutionary can fully globalize. See, knowledge and defense. You're sounding more like an orthodox Marxist than me. I hope you don't feel like I'm attacking you or anything. I think this is quite a good discussion. It's quite valuable. Would I go on the Joe Rogan Experience? Would I go on the Joe Rogan Experience? Would people hate me if I went on the Joe Rogan Experience? Because I think the Joe Rogan Experience would be so fun, because it would be like trying to communicate with one of those gorillas that learned how to sign read. It'd be really interesting, like how to sign, like bring a kitten and be like, Joe, it's a kitten. I really hope my AC is working. Oh, I don't have AC. You can see me sweating on camera. That's why I've got iced gin and tonic. But yeah, it is warm in here. Now my flat has very, very good insulation, which is great in the winter, and in the summer I die. Yeah, I think I could. Could I save Joe Rogan? I could save Joe Rogan for the period in which I was on the podcast, and then the next you'd have Jordan Peterson on next time or something, and then believe everything Jordan Peterson has to say. I think I could like. Do you think? I think I could probably get Joe Rogan to believe that the gym is gay, and I think that would be useful if I could get him on board with the notion that the gym is gay. So this is my official opening up to firstly anyone who wants to invite me on their podcasts. I'll gladly come on your podcast, and also Joe Rogan, let me come on your podcast, and I'll convince you that the gym is gay, and you'll agree with me, and then you'll like it even more. Now let's change up the tunes, and then I'm gonna fill up my gin. What kind of tune do you think we should do? That's fun. Let's do that. Sorry, this is the problem with if one more person asks me to play Wonderwall, I'll find out where you live, and I will I will play Wonderwall at you, and you will hate it. I need to practice. I'm getting shitter at the guitar. I looked at some. I was doing some like channel work today, like cleaning things up and that. and I came across an old clip from like 2 years ago, and I was like, man, I used to be so much better at guitar. It's so much fun. If it wasn't for this is one of the major reasons why I still like to do streams, as well as to talk to you lot. Is it gives me the chance to actually play guitar for once in a while, and that I don't get a chance to do much at all. But yeah, I definitely should practice. If I had more time, I'd practice more. I'd learn some scales again. God, remember learning scales? Wasn't that fun? Right, I will leave you all with this tune for now, while I fill up this drink, and then I will come back, and I think I'll make something a bit less oppressive, because this will be a bit hard to listen to while we're chatting away. back. Back, gin refilled. Let's make a more relaxing tune. Because this is a bit much. We'll try something that's a bit... Let's see what we come up with. Okay, we've got something. Yeah, this is nice. How are you doing with this tune? Right. Where were we? What are we chatting about? Anything new? Thank you for Benjamin Flynn in the chat for putting the cards in, and good job. Was there anything else anyone... Oh, what are you... Here's one. What are my thoughts on Jess's new video on It's Not Real? I'm assuming Israel. I've not watched it yet. I need to know if it's fence sitting. It's complicated colony apologia. It seems like at first. I've not watched it. I mean, I think my video on ecocide and colonialism is cited in that, so if that's the case, then I'm assuming it's not apologia. I don't know. Not watched it. Can't comment. So, no. My thoughts on Israel and Zionism are well documented at this point, and you could basically assume that if something, and I have no reason to assume Jess is my stage name's gonna be John the Funkin'. That's right. I've got no reason to assume Jess's video is fence sitting or anything, because, like I say, my video is citing in it, and my video is certainly not fence sitting. Hiya Sinan, how's it going? Oh yeah, as ever, every time Sinan jumps into chat, I do have to remember to promote our D&D campaign that's streamed on SK the Crusader, on SK the Crusader's YouTube channel. So if you've not subscribed, click on SK the Crusader's little avatar now and subscribe, and you can get our D&D campaign, which is streamed every other Thursday. Any Thursday I am not streaming here. I will be on Sinan's channel playing D&D. Do I think Lenin was cute? Lenin was kind of cute, yeah. I think so. Lenin was kind of handsome. My favourite story about Lenin is that apparently he learned how to speak English in Ireland, so spoke English with an Irish accent, which is great. Which is just great. But yeah, for any oh yeah, all the YouTube episodes of the campaign are available on the channel now, so if you want to catch up, you can do there. Yeah, like I was saying, any view on Palestine, any view on Palestine and Israel as my positions would be pretty much the same. If anyone's doing any apologia, again, not saying Jesse would, then I wouldn't agree with it. That would be basically my position there. Because fuck Israel. And if there was anyone doing apologia at this stage of the genocide, fucking hell, that'd be something else. I'm all good, just done with my Tavern Simulator stream, and I'm combing over the last of my Sonic adventures, 1 and 2 strip. That sounds fun. We've managed to make some music today that isn't Sonic. I don't know if you can hear that, Sinan. Listen, this is not Sonic music. It's definitely not Sonic music, that, which is rare. Normally I end up making Sonic music, and I will probably make some Sonic music later on. Thoughts on decentralized planning by consensual decision making and federated local councils. Some co-ops, well, basic needs are freely met, and as soon as luxury items stops being scarce, it goes free. I mean, I think we basically covered what my views on the continuation of commodity production basically are at this point. I don't think I can relitigate that sort of position. I'll get back to the Sonic music in a bit, and I just ended up doing something kind of relaxing. I had something a bit before that was a bit more sort of chemical plant themed, but we'll get back to the Sonic theme in a bit. I've not made anything disco or funk yet, and we'll get to the disco and funk in a second. You must feed soon. Oops, sorry. Yeah, was there anything else that anyone in chat had any questions about the next videos or previous videos? I had some family I don't hear from very often doing Israel Apologia early on, but even but even they're not at this point. Yeah, I mean, it's even people like people who were doing vague, vague sort of colonialism, Zionism back in October. Even a lot of them I've seen being like, fucking hell, yeah, this is clearly genocide. And obviously within that context you still have to push back on people who make the argument that it's the current Israeli government that's the problem, not the state itself. And you have to continue to push back that the genocide is not just October 7th, but the genocide is settler colonialism. And settler colonialism being a function, genocide being a function necessarily of settler colonialism, and therefore any moment in which Israel continues to exist is a moment of continued genocide. And people, that's the line that people will sometimes be like, especially more liberal folk will be like, it's just the government's. And it's like, no, it's absolutely not just the government, and this isn't just a genocide that started in October. This is a genocide that started maybe 1917 and really kicked off in earnest in 1947. That's the stuff that I'm more likely to see and more likely to have to push back on. There's outsides of like full-on Zionists these days. But you still do have to push back on you can still get people talking about like, oh yeah, no, you can criticize Israel's government, but once you criticize the state itself, then that's not on. No, absolutely, you need to be foundationally criticizing the existence of the state, because that's the problem. This is just an expression of that problem. Capitalism and communism can't work because human nature is self-interested. Max Stirner says, what is more self-interested than wanting to own one's labour? That's a good quote, but I always think anytime anyone makes an appeal to human nature, I immediately check out. I don't believe there's such a thing as human nature. I just absolutely no. I don't believe it's a thing. So, and anytime someone appeals to it, I'm like, it's human nature to be selfish. Like, what if it's not? Prove it. I don't think that's true. So nah, don't believe that. Do I think that the Earth can be considered proletariat because it's formed into a tool and factory and made to work under exploitation? No. No, I don't think I would, and I think that it may be counterproductive to force that kind of. That's like kind of an anthropocentric. That's anthropocentizing. I don't know if that's a word. Of the Earth, I guess, and it's not. I don't think it would be something I would say. I mean, I wouldn't take this as a pinch of salt, because that's just something. This is me riffing off something I've not thought about too hard. I never thought about before, but I wouldn't say that tools and factories are necessarily proletariat either. And I don't think. Yeah. So no, I don't think so. I don't think that's a frame that I would necessarily find useful or analytically fruitful for me. It may be useful to someone, it might be useful to you, but I don't think so. Would I throw rocks at streetlights with Marx? Absolutely. Yes. My favourite story of Marx is that apparently he used to get drunk, which is how a lot of stories about Marx start. And he used to pick someone to just sort of wind up throughout a night by just making direct eye contact with them and saying, "I will destroy you. I will destroy you," over and over again throughout the whole evening. And that's one of my favourite Marx stories. I like that so much. What should I look up from 1917? I'm still learning, even if already convinced. Let me just find a book. This, the 100-Year War on Palestine, by Rashid Khalidi, is a really good history, basically, of settler colonialism in Israel, in Palestine, by Zionists, and that is a very good introduction, I think, to just the history of settler colonialism in Palestine. Take it with some degree of a pinch of salt, because there is the author comes from an established sort of wealthier family, and despite a lot of the work being really good, there are still some gaps in terms of what I would think of the political project. For example, the author's very against violence, because he argues that it's an excuse. It ends up being an excuse for Israel to continue more harsh recriminations. I'm not convinced of that argument, and I don't think it would hold. I don't think violence or not, Israel's going to stop, and I think that when people have run out of other ways to resist violence happens, and there's sort of some shortfalls in terms of that in the book, but in terms of its actual history, it's such a rich historical text about colonialism in Palestine, and it's a very good book for destroying the myth that Zionists perpetuate, that there was no Palestine before Israel. Very good at establishing that as a very obvious myth, and that Palestine existed Palestine existed prior to Zionism, which of course it did, but it's just good as a historical text for that. I think tools and factories are congealed labour per Marx, i.e. they are degraded in part by the process of production and convey their labour value to the product. Yeah, I agree with that. But I don't necessarily think that the earth itself would fall under a similar category. Marx was probably drunk when he read Proudhon. Lots of people, I mean, not, yeah. It's because we Maori see the earth as a living thing, a living being exactly like us. The same word we have for land, which is wenua, is the exact same word we use for placenta, and see it the same. Yeah, I can see that makes sense. Yeah, might be something that would be useful for you to analyze and to think of in that way. It might be something that I would come to later on, but I don't think it's something I necessarily would jump to for my own thinking at this point. What are my views on centralization versus decentralization specifically? I think you're gonna have to be more specific in that question. I'm not sure what exactly you mean by what in organizations or production, or I don't know if there's that's a very broad question. I've seen occasions where movement like organizations have failed because they've been bad at decentralization and could have used some more centralization, and I've seen lots of organizations fail because they've been too centralized and very much needed because they were too centralized. The article in Human Parasites, Posthuman and Papa Tuanuku, and the book Maori Marx is a great explaining our perspective on Papa Tuanuku. I will note that down for sure. That sounds interesting as hell. And yeah, that'd be excellent. Like authoritarian hierarchies versus libertarian anarchy. I mean, again, I think that's a very broad question about, like, that could, I don't think an authoritarian hierarchy is a good thing. It's sort of implied within the name, unfortunately. But I don't think all hierarchy is necessarily authoritarian. There are like many occasions where things can be like hierarchical in some degree, and it's like without straying over into authoritarianism, and some cases where things could benefit from some degree of organizational structure that is in some senses hierarchical. Doesn't mean that's good all the time, but in some cases it can be. I'm straight up, I'm not an anarchist, so like I do tend to stray closer to anarchism than most Marxists, but I'm not an anarchist. So if that answers your question, it's still a bit of a sort of broad question, I think. There are a lot of Marxists who love hierarchy and authority. I would probably push back against. I mean, I'm sure there are lots of Leninists who love a bit of hierarchy and love a bit of strict organizational hierarchy. Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I kind of like a German-Dutch left. I don't think I need to be boxed into a particular view of how I land on an authority question. I don't think that's necessarily the most useful way to approach a person or a body of work. It's if it's a question that occurs to me in a specific sense, and I expand on that question, then I will. then I will, I guess, talk about it. But yeah, I mean, maybe at some point I'll do a video on hierarchy or something, and or organizational forms that'll delve deeper into those questions. But I guess until that point, it would be something that I don't have a huge view. Why do we have to say hi to Rarky? And we're not saying hi to him, we're saying to hire him. Rarky is my friend and he needs a job and we need to hire him. And that's our job for the next stream, is to get my friend Rarky hired. Let's change up the tune. Let's do some disco. And then any more questions in chat, and we will do some more questions. We're gonna do something disco. Now, where are we? How long have I been playing? I mean, just seemingly effortlessly. If you hang around the streams long enough, you hear them. I'm unfortunately a lot of my playing is very samey. Unfortunately, I've been trying to. I need to work on some new styles and stuff, so that these streams don't get boring for music. But oh god, I've been playing 20 years now, I guess, since I've been about 10 years old. So yeah, 20 years, which is a long time. That's a long time to be playing guitar. I've gotten worse over it since my mid-20s, since I'm no longer playing bands anymore. But yeah, that's a long time of playing. What are we on? What's chat talking about? We still talk about hierarchies. Here's an interesting question for you, knowledge and defence. So you say a big reason why I believe every lefty, socialist and Marxist should be libertarian in the original sense of the word is because authority is scientifically proven to destroy empathy. But where within, and this isn't an attack, again, it's just a question and worth considering, is to what extent is science as a discipline necessarily one that is hierarchical, and the appealing to that kind of hierarchical knowledge production, one that is which is colonial, which is certainly something that needs to be fundamentally upturned. Does that not kind of reproduce the exact problem that we're talking about? If we're talking about appealing to some sort of scientific authority, which is kind of hierarchical in terms of knowledge production, is that not an issue with providing a basis of something? So I wouldn't necessarily appeal to, and again, this myself, not something that you necessarily have to do. I wouldn't appeal to scientific proofs of anything like empathy or anything like that. If I was to make an argument about the validity of a specific political system, because I would want to base my I wouldn't want to appeal to a scientific authority to make a case like that, because for me, science is kind of, as a discipline, is one that is innately bound up within colonial epistemologies and worldviews, which makes it somewhat limited as a means of achieving revolutionary goals, and certainly is something that reproduces a kind of hierarchy of knowledge production. I'm trying with something. Sorry, I'm crunching. It's something you see in the even in like colonial institutions like the university, obsessed with making stuff like sociology itself a specific part of of colonial knowledge production more scientific, which makes it worse. You get it as well as politics as well as a discipline, incredibly bound up with this kind of over scientism. How difficult have I found getting into academia in the UK, especially pursuing Marxist type stuff? Hey, well, I'm unemployed, so I don't think the issue for me is pursuing Marxist type stuff. There's plenty of Marxist sociologists. The issue with getting into academia in the UK is because academia is a wasteland that has been gutted and filled with marketization, neoliberalization, and it's not my discipline necessarily. That's the issue with me not having a job. It's that the industry is crumbling. Things are bad. Things are bad. Yeah, I will have to check out that Maori Marx book. That sounds interesting as hell. On the other hand, when hierarchical discipline yields results which are anti-hierarchical, that would seem to lend greater credibility to those results. Maybe, but I think I understand what you're saying, but I wouldn't. I don't think that necessarily deals with the actual underlying problem of appealing to that kind of knowledge, and ends up kind of reinforcing that as a more legitimate knowledge form. I guess like you can get into questions about what is meant by science, which is something that a video I've been planning to do for a while. What is meant by science? Because obviously, Hegel uses it differently from your standard STEM graduate. But then I might have to read Hegel, and God, I simply don't want to do that. I just have too. I'm just too hot to read Hegel. I think that's just true. So I'm saying, as someone absurdly STEM educated, I fucking hate the way STEM makes you think. Yeah. And I hate the way that it's projected onto other disciplines as well. Like you could say there is evidence which has been produced by a specific type of work which indicates certain things, but within that context you would have to be very, very careful about appealing to the necessary proof, I think. To say that something is proven by science is different from saying using science to then produce certain findings and situate those findings within a broader knowledge production regime, I think. And I think that is an issue that's worth engaging with. John, you might remember the period of time when they'd just get a physicist on to comment on any old shite on the TV. They still go to Brian Cox, not the actor, not the cool Brian Cox, grumpy cool Scottish Brian Cox, the smiling, isn't everything amazing Brian Cox. They still go to him to talk about politics. Who gives a fuck what Brian Cox thinks? They still he's a genius, he's a doctor in science. He's not a genius. Stop talking to him. He has nothing to say. Just because he's a scientist. Get fucking Richard Dawkins to comment on philosophy he has no idea about. Fuck off. Nobody needs to hear from him. Yeah. It's an interesting question. I was talking about this the other day, and this is something I might get into for a video, was to what extent something like space travel could be moving too far away from the camera. Something like space travel could be considered so I'm saying, so I know that Brian Cox specifically is a very below average physicist. He's just telegenic. Well, what I know about Brian Cox, and I'm assuming he's not going to watch this so I won't get sued, is that I have heard from people in Manchester University that he has a reputation for dust collecting, because he is a professor of physics at Manchester University, and he has a reputation that his office just collects a thin layer of dust, and the only time he ever comes in is when there's a strike to break. That I've heard that if there's one time you're guaranteed to see Brian Cox on Manchester University campus, it's if there is a strike and he's there to fucking cross the picket line. That's what I've heard. And I bet he fucking loves Oasis. I lost track of what I was saying. Oh yes, yeah. So a friend of mine was talking to me about like the notion that space travel. Have you also heard that rumor, Sinan? Yeah, that space travel would be innately colonial, because of ideas about traveling and penetrating and colonial ideals of like the expansion. And like I think what I was thinking about that was that yes, I think that space travel as it exists currently is colonial. I think it's inescapably so. It's done primarily by settler colonial regimes and agency in service of capitalist aims. But I don't think it would necessarily always be the case. And I think that the way that it was described to me in the conversation, people ended up sort of eternalizing certain concepts. So if there was a hypothetical future, and under communism, global communism, hypothetical future, and there was a possibility to do easier space travel, would it necessarily be colonial? I don't know. And would the imaginaries associated with it be necessarily colonial? And again, I don't know. And with that conversation, I decided I will probably end up doing a video on sci-fi and space and stuff, and do a video on that at some point, because that sounds fun. Talking about Le Guin and stuff. I've delivered the verdict on space travel. It sucks and makes everything shittier here. Another thing, talking about Brian Cox again. This is the Brian Cox hate hour from now. You know what? I'm going to make another tune. I'm gonna fill up my gin. How big is my video ideas list now? It's not that big. I'm a bit worried that it's not that big, but I do have one on science that I have. It's been in a draft for ages, and one on space that I think would be good. Do I have any recommendations for Le Guin books apart from the one you've already mentioned? We will get back to Brian Cox because I do want to bitch about him. I just finished reading the entirety of the Earthsea series, which is Le Guin's fantasy wizard series, and it's fucking brilliant. Oh, it was so good. It's like It's so good. I was reading. So I was reading. Someone was complaining on Twitter the other day. They were talking about how, J.K. Rowling's books are filled with misogyny and filled with like not like other girl type of feminism and stuff like that. And someone replied to them saying, "Yeah, but that's kind of just like what all books were like in the 90s and early 2000s." And I just finished reading the Earthsea series, and which was started in the 60s. And I was like, no, not all fantasy books were like that in the 90s. That's definitely not true. You definitely can glean someone's politics from the way they present their female characters, even if they were in the 90s. Because Le Guin, none of her female characters are superfluous or misogynistic. They're all brilliant. They're all fucking great, and the books are incredible. So yeah, the entirety of the Earthsea series is great. It's like clearly so much of it's clearly been used to rip off. I'm convinced that some of it has been used by Star Wars writers, ripped off by Star Wars writers, and the way that the wizards in Earthsea kind of operate is very Jedi-like. And I think that there's been some rip-off there from Star Wars. It's just great. It's clearly been ripped off by Rowling in some degree. It's so good. And on the sci-fi, because I am going to read more of Le Guin's sci-fi stuff. But she has a short, like a novella, a short story basically called The Word for World is Forest, which is really, really good. Talk about space colonization. Yeah, the Jedi-like thing, it does predate Star Wars, but still there is, I think, the Acolyte TV show, I think that the writer of that has probably read the Earthsea books and probably used it, and to the show's benefit. The word for world is forest is really good as a tale of space colonization, and as a metaphor for colonization as it was happening. As it is continuing to happen. I think Le Guin wrote it in the 70s. It's really good. But all of those are great. This show was okay. I think the Acolyte show was... it was... You know what it was? It was the best Star Wars show since Andor. And it was in terms of Star Wars shows, it's definitely like up there with them, because so many of them have been bad. It wasn't great. It was fine. George Lucas ripped off a lot of things, and Star Wars fans hate the sequel trilogy for being unoriginal. Don't want to admit it. I think George Lucas. It's hard to see. I think he ripped. Did he rip them off, or did he... It's a question of ripping off or using them as a sort of homage. I don't think he ripped up... Like, people talk about him ripping off Dune, and I'm like, I don't think that's right. I think these are fundamentally different stories. There's lots of aesthetic similarities, but they're so fundamentally different stories that I don't think it'd be right to say he ripped off Dune. Maybe he ripped off a bunch of Japanese and Western movies. Who cares? Have I read Ian M. Banks' books? I think the only Ian Banks book I've read is one called Wit, which is about a woman in a Scottish cult, a Scottish religious cult, leaving the cult to sort of find her family and find a missing person. And that was really good. I read that as part of the trio of books I read before I realised I was queer in any way, which were Orange is Not the Only Fruit, about young lesbian girl. The Poiswood Bible were about a bunch of female perspectives in colonial Conga, with some with some uh, uh, with some definitely queer aspects, and then which also queer aspects as well. And then I came out about 10 years later as queer and was like, that makes sense. Anarchist love Andor. Hey, lots of Stalinists also love Andor. Nemec is Trotsky. I'll help you. Yeah, I think I've already got like a bunch of recommendations. A lot of it is Ursula Le Guin. But yeah, I would have to read some more sci-fi to help that. Right. Jeanette Winston's so good. Let's get a new tune, and then I'm gonna fill up the gin, and then I'm gonna moan about Brian Cox some more. Because you can't. I do like moaning about people. We are edging towards me being boozed up enough to do a hot take, but can you have a hot take on Fontaine's DC? I don't know what that is, so no, I guess. listen, and this also isn't Sonic. My take on Oasis, Lewis Anderton, is not hot. It is well thought out, and it's that they're shit. It's that they're shit, and they're shit, and all the people excited about the reunion, I feel sorry for. I'm gonna get some gin, and then I'm gonna shit on Brian Cox. first things first, we have Cat. Say hello to Cat. See how Cat changes the white balance. Say hi to Cat, and Cat, say hi. How long are you going to cope with being in here before you start being a dickhead? Hello, Cat. Oh, he's purring. He's happy. He's happy to be here. It's been a while since he's been on the show. He is gonna start being a dick. I can see him eyeing up my spider plant because he wants to chew it. He is now squirming because he wants to chew my spider plant. You're not chewing my spider plant. Okay, Cat's gonna go out now because I can tell he's gonna be a dick. Alright, so yes, now I have my drink. Are Oasis better or worse than Brian Cox? I think Brian Cox is a direct result of Oasis because D-Ream, Brian Cox's band, were a Britpop band that only existed, I think, because Oasis existed. And I think Brian Cox's whole vibe of being a Manchester smiley boy with is dependent on the cultural cachet developed by Oasis. So no Oasis, no Brian Cox, and that alone should be enough to condemn them to the dustbin of history. So the thing I was going to say, for shitting on him, was when we were talking about space colonization, and so much of space colonization is obviously so much of it is just absolute bullshit. But so much of it is also bullshit in service of a particular ideal about how economies should be organized. And Brian Cox did this. He had this thing on BBC a few years ago that was like a greatest hits of all of the shows that I've produced. All of the shows that me, Brian Cox, the great science communicator, have produced, and it's great to watch through all my greatest hits. And one of those greatest hits was him meeting Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. And talking about Mars colonization. And it's bad enough that you meet Amazon's Jeff Bezos and you talk about how great he is for science, how much of an innovator he is, such a great guy, Jeff Bezos. To not question, how his entire... how on the one hand, all of his warehouses are dens of the worst exploitation imaginable, and on the other, that so much of his revenue comes from hosting servers on which the internet depends. So essential critical infrastructure that he basically gets a whole bunch of money for, and also contributes terribly to environmental destruction. Bear in mind as I go forward. So Brian Cox meets up with Amazon's Jeff Bezos to discuss space colonization, because who knows better about the ins and outs, the intricacies of space colonization than Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, a businessman who's just rich. And as they're talking, they talk about what they could do with this colonization, because and they frame this in terms of environmental destruction. Brian Cox is like, this is amazing, isn't it amazing? We can but what's amazing is that the Earth is such a fragile ecosystem. A Garden of Eden, that's the phrase he uses specifically, a Garden of Eden. And I remember it because it's so colonial. It's a Garden of Eden. So what we can do is we can do all the horrible, messy production. We can move that off of the Earth onto Mars and leave Earth as a pristine Garden of Eden. And I was like, Brian Cox, you fucking prick. Brian Cox, how dare you? How dare you, Brian Cox? This is no wonder. This is the man who breaks strikes. I can see it. I can see it with my own eyes, with the thinking that's going through your head. We can export all the workers, all the factories, all the production to Terra Nullis and keep the lovely, pristine space free. And isn't that nice, so that we can have the pristine Earth and leave all the nasty production to Mars? Wouldn't that be nice for me, Brian Cox, and my new Labour ass fucking bullshit haircut? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice for me, Brian Cox, and my dusty ass university desk, which never gets any sight unless there's a strike to break? Wouldn't that be nice for me, I assume, Oasis fan, Brian Cox? So yeah, I don't like Brian Cox. He did block me, and I've talked about this on stream several times, because this is a character I do not like. He blocked me on Twitter because during one of our various Conservative leadership elections, there's a character called Rory Stewart who was the colonial governor of Iraq. Essentially, he took over governorship of Iraq after the Iraq War. He was involved in the army during Iraq and Afghanistan, and during his election campaign, he kept making lots of nods and winks to being in the MI5 and MI6, being a spy. And Brian Cox, people were bringing this up and questioning the relevance and about his Afghanistan, yeah, it was Afghanistan. You're right. It was the other horrendous imperialist war that happened in 2003. Someone was like questioning the relevance of his, or the value of his military record as a potential prime minister, because he would have become prime minister if he'd won the leadership election, because our election system's fucked. And Brian Cox was like, you might disagree with Rory Stewart, but he is an honest man, and it is outrageous to question the sacrifices he's made for this country through his military record. Now, for anyone who doesn't necessarily know, in both Iraq and Afghanistan, there is widespread documented cases of systemic torture conducted by the British military against not just Iraqi soldiers, but Iraqi civilians and Afghan soldiers and civilians as well. And if someone was involved high up in the military, there is a very strong likelihood that they, 1, knew about this and did not report it, 2, knew about this and sanctioned it, or 3, knew about it and actively engaged in it. And I said to Brian Cox, esteemed Professor Brian Cox, look, I think it's relevant to know if our Prime Minister may have known about, sanctioned or conducted torture before he becomes our prime minister. So I think it's probably a legitimate line of questioning. No? You think maybe it's probably relevant to know if our supposed potential prime minister has engaged in, knew about, or sanctioned torture? Yeah? And he blocked me. Yeah, he blocked me for that. So, yeah. Isn't space amazing? Ryan Cox. Space may be amazing, but Earth is shit because of people like you. To be fair, space is kind of shit. I wouldn't want to go to space. The stories of no-knock raid murder initiations in occupied Afghanistan are genuinely the most disgusting I've read about. I mean, this stuff isn't even... It's not even controversially... Like, this is not contested stuff. It's not like, oh, you know, there were some leaks and there's some potential torture or war crimes occurring in these in both Iraq and Afghanistan. These are mainstream verified accounts to the extent that they've appeared in The Guardian, a liberal newspaper. So, you know, it's not conspiracy theory, it's there and out in the open, and it's wild that it's not talked about, and it's wild that Rory Stewart, and architect of the Iraq war, war criminal, and esteemed liar Alistair Campbell can knock around on podcasts and be invited onto TV news shows to give their opinion on the fucking word of the day. These people have so much blood on their hands. Anyway, so, you know, I don't like Oasis. That's the point I was making. German citizen Khalid al-Masri was tortured for an extended period in Bagram after his abduction from Macedonia. Many such cases. Our states have been actively engaged in torture. Sorry, I laughed there because I saw the question from Knowledge and Defence. Have I heard of MAGA communism? I was just going to ask for any last questions because we were going to. It's closing into 11 o'clock, so closer to the end of the show. I've heard about MAGA communism though. Those people are fucking sad. Those people are sad. I saw the launch photo for the new American Communist Party or whatever it's called, filled with your fucking hazes and your MAGA communists, your 40-year-old, 20-year-old Jackson Hinkle, which is again an absurd name for anyone to have. Jackson Hinkle. It's got too many things going on. It feels like your tongue is falling down a hill. Yeah, I've heard of the MAGA communists. They're very silly. Very silly. Oh God. One day, I'm gonna. You haven't heard of MAGA communism, Lewis Anderson? MAGA communism is nonsense. It's a bullshit fake ideology promoted by a bunch of essentially grifters who are making money off of trying to be communist, I guess. Trying to be anti-imperialist but also patriotic Americans who believe in American patriotism under communism. These are the kind of people who we were talking about earlier, who mean, these are the worst of the type of people who completely disregard indigenous struggles in the US. They're very silly. But it's amazing to me how they've continued to go after Has went viral for that video where he didn't know how many holes women had under the waist. And that was I'm amazed that they bounced back from that. I guess enough misogynists like them that it doesn't matter to them that their faves are absolute fucking dipshits. We have the dog whistle meaning of the Jews when they say imperialism. Yeah, of course. I had a big argument with someone in one of my comment section once when I described Jackson Hinkle as basically an anti-Semite, because he is. It's just clear. Big old anti-Semite. Either Jackson Hinkle or Jason Hickel needs to change their name. Yeah, it's a very Naomi Wolf, Naomi Klein situation there, isn't it? It really. I mean, yeah. What's my view on campism? Again, it's a broad question, in the sense of like, there's a type of vulgar campism which basically says everything that the United States does is necessarily bad, and while that is analytically untrue because of particular contexts, going by that general rule of thumb, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna be on track. It gets into more tricky water when you fail to critique the home camp that you're a fan of. But if you want to, if your campism is just the United States of America does bad things all the time, then you're going to be on track a vast majority of the time. Then they say, hey, see, MAGA people love communism because they applauded me for saying fascist. Yeah. They're just a bunch of fascists. They're just a bunch of weird fascists, weird wee fascists. It was so funny how in the launch of their new fake communist party, there wasn't a single woman. Really, not beating the allegations. And also Jackson Hinkle. I don't know how he manages to look 40. It's not that he looks bad. It's like, because like he's like ostensibly like a good enough looking man, but he looks like he has an accountant, and it's bizarre. I don't look like I have an accountant. How do MAGA communists square the circle of MAGA folks screaming about Marxists and all that? I don't know. I guess they probably say shit like they've got false consciousness produced by the liberal media or something like that, and then probably shove in a dog whistle about Jews in there somewhere, and they just need to hear the truth, the scientific truth that Marxism is about patriotism and truly realising US patriotism, and then everything will be fine. I guess that's what they do. Liberal home side campism always gets omitted from the discussion of campism. True. I've never thought about that, but yeah, you're right. That's a good point. Alright, unless there's any more questions coming in, anything anyone wants to discuss, throw into the mix before we head off, we'll draw to a close. I'll have they gone the whole way and embraced LaRouche yet? I don't actually think they know who that is, but probably. I know that Caleb Maupin was kind of one of the MAGA communists, but he kind of lost his standing after his cult, the abusive cult that he ran fell apart. So that put him out the way. So no more red men in suits, just short 40-year-olds, 20-year-olds in suits. Jackson Hinkle's biggest claim to fame is getting shat on by the menswear Twitter account, which was extremely funny. Anyone trying to argue America good at this moment is doing it on hard mode. I don't. So there's cases where you can say things like, because of the particular balance of power, America accidentally does something that is positive. Saying things like funding to an extent rebels in Syria because they were fighting against ISIS. Pretty good to arm autonomous communist rebels in Syria, and they've done sort of accidentally done things like that because people have been fighting against whatever. But generally, you can make the argument that the US and anything it does is the great evil. Not to go all Maoist, but America KKK, the great evil. I was reading it. There was an interesting article in the New Internationalist, which was, and this again another video that I might do about US influence in friendly nations, and let me get it, because I'm going to read this out, and if Sinan's still here, I think Sinan will find this interesting. So, this is an excerpt from a book that I am going to read, called "The Racket: A Rogue Reporter versus the American Empire," and it goes into a whole load of interesting stuff about the way the American Empire has infiltrated and influenced parts of its friendlier, its allies as well. Now, Sinan, this is a bit which concerns one Ruth Smeeth, Labour MP. So basically, they found out that the CIA had been funding through various efforts particular think tanks, and this is not a revelation. We all know CIA funds particular think tanks, particular things in the UK. One of them is called the Index on Censorship, which is the UK's foremost free expression group, which monitors threats to free speech and publishes censored writers. It received £603,257 from the CIA in 2016 to 2021. During this time, the Index's chief executive was the Labour MP Ruth Smeeth, which, and 6 months after losing her seat in Parliament, she was appointed 6 months after losing her seat in Parliament. The US diplomatic cable published had cables published by WikiLeaks, and found that the US embassy had referred to Ruth Smeeth as a asset to US intelligence to strictly be protected, because she kept funneling privileged information from from Westminster to the US embassy prior to that information being made available to the media or to the public. So she was she was an asset this Labour MP was an asset to the CIA and the organisation she was a chair of received hundreds of thousands of pounds directly from the CIA. Isn't that weird? Isn't that slightly weird? Do we not like that? I don't like that. A Labour peer. She is now a Labour peer who has been listed as a source that the US diplomatic cable said to strictly protect, and she'd been working with them not just from when she was an MP, but from prior to being an MP. She'd been working for them for decades, for like 15 years. And isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful? Don't you love it when high-profile MPs, now peers, are listed as sources for the US with no media uproar or no media attention at all? Isn't that wonderful? It'd be weird if she was amplified by the press to attack a mildly US skeptical political leader. Now that's interesting you say that, because there was various bits of various words from US diplomatic officials essentially saying that they needed to oppose any potential chance of Corbyn's election because of the threat he posed to American imperialism and American imperial interests. What was his name again? Second. Yes. This was made explicit in June 2019 when US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo visited Britain and was recorded saying privately, "It could be that Mr. Corbyn manages to run the gauntlet and get elected. It's possible, you should know. We won't wait for him to do those things to begin push back. We will do our level best. It's too risky and too important and too hard once it's already happened." This was in 2019. Yeah. Mike Pompeo. Great. Yeah, very special relationship. Labour aren't like the Tories. They're not all eating cunts. Some of them are CIA cunts. I bet some of the Tories are CIA cunts as well, let's be honest. Did anything interesting happen in 2019? No, nothing. Nothing, I don't think. But I'm sure also anything that happened prior to 2019 can't be associated with that particular attitude, because that was prior, and there's no evidence that the US would therefore have any issue with Corbyn prior to 2019. Anyway, fuck the US. all my friends advocate for the total dismantling of the US and the imperial project that it helms. And on that, I think we will draw it to a close. Thanks for coming, guys. I will end once again with the track that we started on, and just let the music run for a bit. Should be back in 2 weeks. I don't think I've got anything else in the way in 2 weeks. But next week I'll be on Sinan's channel, SK the Crusader, playing D&D once again, and let me just check my calendar. Where is my calendar app? God damn it! Here it is. No, nothing on. So 2 weeks should be fine, and we'll see you then. And I'll leave you just with some the music that we started with. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.